Shalom, people. This is Brother Laws coming at you with another video, and getting ready to do some yard work that's been neglected for quite a while. I've been trying to grow some grass in my yard, but as we discovered when we moved in the house a few years ago, the yard had a lot of rocks and boulders that I guess when they are building these suburban developments, they'll clear the yard as much as they can, but in the case of the development that we're in, the houses they're said to be sort of like starter houses, kind of, in that sense of you got to work the yard to get the yard the way you want to. Over the years, you'll probably have some issues with items in your house that need to be replaced, because they want you to make the improvements yourself, and that'll cut down on the price of the house. See, if they had cleared the boulders and all that stuff out, made sure that the lawns were neatly manicured, and you had all high-end stuff in your house, it was going to drive the price up. So basically, it's not a fixer-upper. It's a brand new house we moved in, but it's just that some of these things, you know, you had to make sure that you do the upkeep of these items, and which you should do with any house. Even if you are in $1 million mansion, you're gonna have to put some money behind it. But make a long story short, how does this equate to our spiritual life? Well, as I, for my own self, and I can show you in the scriptures also, in my life as a believer in Yahushua, as I called him back then, Jesus, when I got saved back in 1987, that when you are born again, you are not born basically complete with all the knowledge and all the well, let me take that back. You are born complete in Yahushua. Your salvation is a perfect salvation, because he was a perfect sacrifice. But the working out of that only comes with time, meaning you start out as a babe, and as you grow, you gain more knowledge. As you encounter more and more situations in your life where that which Yah has put into you at your salvation, your new birth, it'll start coming out. That's why he said, if you're a babe, desire the sincere milk of the word. Don't try to jump to meat. And I would say this same thing with this awakening. At best, most of us, at least some of the people that I know and that I've, kind of listened to on YouTube and other platforms, their salvation walk is a mature salvation walk, but their walk in this knowledge of us being Hebrews is a babe. It's on a baby level. And the reason I know is because every day somebody's coming up with a different name that they could have been using for Yeshua, or they coming up with a different take on how scripture can be interpreted, and that there is no set vision yet. And that's mainly also because we are still scattered and dispersed, and Yah is slowly but surely bringing us together. But this goes back to what Paul was saying in the book of Ephesians when he talked about the fivefold gifts of the Spirit that Yah has given to. He gave first to us as Israel, but then he allowed the Gentiles to take it to grow the body of Yeshua together into the perfect man. And we know what the Gentiles did with it. They constructed a body called the church, which was just for them, while the real body of Yeshua, which was his people, and then those that were supposed to be engrafted in, was totally neglected. So we are who Paul was talking about. We are still in a babe stage, because 300 years after Yeshua had rose from the dead and ascended back into heaven, we know that the Gentiles took over the quote-unquote preaching of the gospel and created their false assembly called the church, and left true Israel outside. Now, they sometimes would allow us to hear the gospel. There will always be the caveat that you can hear the quote-unquote gospel, but because you don't have no soul, you're not gonna go to heaven. So I'm here to tell you that even in this thing called Christianity, we are if you wanna stay in that, you are still a babe in knowledge. Whereas they're holding all the books, still they're holding all the paintings of how Yeshua looked. They're holding all that stuff back even from the church. If it had not been for this awakening and people really going and investigating stuff that was hidden in plain sight, we wouldn't know that. But even us that's in the awakening to this knowledge, not to Yeshua, because Yeshua, the message of Yeshua, we still was able to receive that. But no, in Ephesians he said that the gifts were given, the office gifts were given to help bring the church, the body of Yeshua to its maturity. And since they held all the office gifts, all the terms that we use, everything that we use, we got it from the Gentiles. They neglected us. They gave us the scraps or whatever. But even with the scraps, we still was able to do something with that. But our growth is stunted. So we're coming into this awakening, but we also coming into a deeper understanding of what the real gospel is. And so it's almost like we're starting from the point of the Council of Nicaea, which is when the Gentiles took over the holy manuscripts and rearranged and added to and took away. That's why you have so many different Bibles. That's why you have so many different doctrines. And then when Yeshua, because he predicted that we would be scattered and that we wouldn't, we would not come back into the land until the times of the Gentiles was fulfilled. We are trying to get our maturity in Yeshua, whether or not you are a believer in the awakening. Even if you are a believer in the church system that they have, you only have been given scraps. That's why you have to go to their seminaries. You have to, but this started changing in the 60s with theologians like Dr. James Cone, who came back and said, you know what, we black people, we need to start observing the gospel through the eyes of ourselves. That's when black people started trying to appropriate the gospel for themselves, not knowing that it was us all along. But what happened was some people in the black theological liberation movement threw the baby out with the bathwater. They threw out Yeshua. They said, well, we don't need Yeshua. We just need the radical part of him or whatever. And so we were still left on ground zero. Now what we're doing with this awakening, we're understanding that you gotta have Yeshua, which we already have, but you also gotta mix that with the fact that the way you've been praying, you have not been praying in a way that would push your people forward. When you pray for America and you pray for America to be great, you're praying for yourself to be subdued. You are praying for your people to basically be like what Donald Trump is saying, make America great again. America was great when we were enslaved. America was great when we could not appropriate the things of this land to better ourselves. So we go back to that mode of thought, and we go back to that mode of approaching the message that we aren't anybody but the cursed children of Ham and all these things. We'll be in this perpetual state of slavery forever. This is why the message of that we are the people is so important, not just because it's true, but it is also how we will uplift ourselves without having an army, without having all the weapons and the strategize and the think tanks like them. Because if we really grab hold to this and understand what it's saying, when no weapon formed against you shall prosper, that it won't. And this is why integration was so harmful to us, because integrating into this thing makes you feel like you are so fortunate to be part of what they have, when actuality, as we've seen with the Moorish invasion of Europe, that brought science and technology and all that to the Europeans, but they turned it around and made us think that everything flowed out of them. It's the same thing has got to be with the understanding of the scriptures and some fundamental flaws that they have been giving us for years, and how what these scriptures say, that now we're waking up and saying that we was looking at this all along, but you was telling us this is what this meant, like even like the color of our Messiah being that of a black, being that he was a black, and that of even Father Yah being black or a Negroid. They told us no, that was figuratively. So what else? And now that, especially after now some of us found out about the slave Bible, that they gave the slaves that only had 33 books, and they took everything out of it pertaining to freedom, liberty, and all this stuff. What else has been hid from us? That's why we cannot go back. Us that are awakening, we gotta pray that Yah eliminate the rebels. We gotta pray that Yah takes their church mindset out of this, not the praise part. We need to praise and worship the Father Yah. We do. That's no doubt. But I'm talking about some of the other things that inherently come with trying to organize an organism. The organism is a lifeless a construct. An organ is something that's alive. We must keep the life in this awakening by not organizing it into oblivion, which is what the Gentiles, when they took over, organized and came up with these bishops and archbishops and all this stuff. And what is you see in the black, quote unquote, black church today? You see all this madness. When are we going to wake up? Even the Gentiles are waking up and saying this stuff is not of the Most High. Whether or not you believe that Benny Hinn's proclamation that the prosperity gospel is wrong, whether you believe it's just a stunt and that he actually don't believe the prosperity gospel is just for him to even utter that with his lips is something that should make you stand up and think. But it's unfortunate that our people will have to wait till Benny Hinn said to see that something was fundamentally wrong with not only the church, but also the prosperity gospel, the way that it was preached. Well, that's, something that I'll talk about on another day. The fact that a lot of the Gentiles are waking up to who we are, and they might not be saying anything, but you can believe that they think tanks are looking at this and they're thinking of ways to circumvent this. This is why we must we gotta get back to Yah as a people, as a collective, and get the prayer warriors that are still in the church that are praying for this construct which is theirs, and pray that the Most High Yah will bring the two sticks together, wake up the people in Africa away from their ancestral worship, which the enemy is trying to get us into that too. With us remembering the transatlantic slave trade, we must remember the ancestors, but we must remember that they're not down here on earth no more. They're not. The ones that are in Yahushua are in there up there in the altar, at the altar, under the throne room. That's where they're at right now. Ones that came into this captivity that was in rebellion and sin, they're burning right now. So we can't romanticize all of the ancestors, because they're the reason why we went into slavery. But if we continue on in some of the things that we're doing, we'll remain in this semi-comatose state where some of us are waking up and some of us want to remain in the sleep. Just like when the civil rights movement came, they said the majority of the black churches were not at the beginning supportive of it. They wanted the status quo to stay the way it was. It was just later on that some of them signed on to it, but we know what it dissolved into. It dissolved into the vacuum was that other group, quote unquote minority groups, came in and took over the laws and the benefits that we had created for themselves, and now we were left outside holding an empty bag. So let's not be left outside on this awakening with the Gentiles understanding. It's not all of them, but some of them waking up in the knowledge and say, hey, I know that these people are the blessed people, and we want to be on the right side of Yah. But while our people say, oh, nah, that's not so, and just continue on, just, denying this. When you see it in scripture, you like the way things are. You're comfortable in the way things are. That's why in Revelation, Yahushua kept saying over and over, come out from among them, my people, and be ye and come out from among Babylon. Come out from Babylon. Our people are just comfortable in it. Unfortunately, the snare that the Most High Yah set for some of us in these lands that He scattered and dispersed us to is taking hold, because you can believe that when Yah sent some of us into captivity, talking about our ancestors, our descendants, that He sent some of them to captivity for them to die and because of their sin. He had it he had it in the mind that they was gonna be swallowed up. Either they were gonna be swallowed up through being blended out by the other races, or they were gonna be swallowed up with the sword. And that's happened to a lot of us that came over here. I just thank the Most High that, you know, he was gracious to me and my family, you know. And I know, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, not being able to trust the DNA and everything, but it's got to be something to it. People, they wouldn't be letting people out of prison and stuff if there was nothing to it, if it was just some kind of alchemic trick. So I want y'all to like, share, and subscribe. Be blessed.